Thanks so much. All right, let me get my screen uh, up. So let's go over the contributors because we couldn't do this without everyone pitching in and helping. So the gateway, of course, Daniel is our gracious host. Local IT is myself, and Easy AI is Chris Haber, and then Kai, of course, is LAAI. And our point here for this contributor page is to, once someone has contributed, we build out this page as we go. And these are all local resources that are available to you. If you have any questions, you need to get a hold of any of these folks, then just reach out to us and we'll get you squared away. All right. And then to start, what we're going to do is the overview that we already did, but then we're going to get into AI news, which is going to be brief. And then I'll introduce our presenter for today, and then Kyle will take it over. So the smartest AI models by IQ, and I went ahead and looked it up before we get into this. Albert Einstein's IQ was 160. So the top of the scale here is Open AI's newest model, which is at 135. So a new ranking compares AI models based on IQ using the Mensa Norway test. A challenging exam meant for humans. Open AI model tops the list with genius level scores of 135, and I don't want to read all the way through this. It goes more into say that those are the text models, which if you use AI, you probably do that a lot. You know, help me rewrite this, help me do this email, review this document, and give me some insights in it. And then down at the bottom, it says the data suggests AI is now surpassing humans in text-based reasoning, but still struggles with visual tasks. And if you dig into the research on how AI works, come to find out, us wonderful human brains in our eyes do an incredible amount of heavy lifting. So the U.S. government is considering not regulating AI for 10 years. The U.S. government is considering a new law that would block individual states from making their own rules for AI for the next 10 years. This rule is hidden inside a big bill. I assume that's the big, beautiful bill, recently passed by the House of Representatives. And then we'll just keep on going down the bottom. Supporters like Meta and OpenAI, Meta, of course, being Facebook, say that this will help companies grow faster and avoid confusing laws, but critics say it gives too much power to tech companies and takes away important protections from people. I kind of lean towards states' rights, so this kind of annoys me that the federal government would do this kind of thing. But on the other hand, I do think that the noticeable lack of regulation on the internet is what's helped it grow to be such a wonderful tool that we have. And it also has all of its problems. Right? We, in the IT industry, where it's the space I work in every day, and I talk to my banker friends and colleagues, and people are, getting things stolen from them. People's identities are stolen, and it's the industry tries hard to take care of that. So not having regulation obviously has its downsides. So we'll see how this works out if it in fact does get passed. So into the robotics news a little bit. X Robotics robots are cooking up 25,000 pizzas a month. And I won't go through reading all of this. You can check out X Robotics. And these are not what the robots look like. I had AI generate this for fun. But one of the things that they emphasized is here at the bottom of this is, unlike failed pizza robotics startups like Zoom, X Robotics focuses on assistive, not replacement tech that fits existing kitchens and workflows. And it's a box. Think of it as like a half size of a refrigerator that you feed the ingredients into, and then it produces a pizza good enough for the employee to throw in the oven and deal with it. So robotics is another part of AI. When people say the AI is taking over, not certainly can take over unless we improve robotics quite a bit. And now to our presentation. Kai, I'm going to hand it off to you now. And as Daniel really did most of the introduction, let me add just a little bit more. I've known Kai for, I believe, well over a year now. I have been going to LAAI for some time, and just really have had a blast and interacting with him, learning so much. He has incredible insights. He has a wonderful abilities to present. He can go to all new heights of explaining things to you, but has that special skill of bringing things down to the average Joe, if you will, and helping us all understand. So, Kai, I will stop presenting and hand it off to you.
Well, thank you very much, and welcome everyone. That was quite an intro. Lots of pressure, but I will do my best. I really appreciate being here. For some of you, you may know me. You may have come to the LAI meetups. I also, as Daniel said, presented to the South Baldwin Chamber about a month ago, maybe a little over that. But today, I'm going to talk to everyone about automating social media using AI, particularly ChatGPT. So this is something that I get asked a lot about. So if you look at the LinkedIn pages or the Facebook pages for Lower Alabama AI or my company, Motive AI, you will see frequent posts. Those are entirely done by AI. I don't write any of those. I don't have a social media team that does that. I don't have a marketing team that does that. I'm not saying that it does a better job than a dedicated team or sort of an outsourced marketing agency, but it has been effective. And it's a huge time saver because I'm not really good at that. Writing social media posts is not really my thing. It's something I struggle with. I sort of, I wordsmith everything and I get, hung up on certain things. AI doesn't, and AI does a very good job of it. It took me a while to get to that point, right? So it's not something that sort of out of the box, it just sort of, it worked. And I should point out, there are now tools that you can find to do this. What I'm going to present to everyone is my system. And it's a system that you can replicate. Mine is slightly more technical. And so I don't want people to be put off on that. So I'm going to walk people through it. But I think what's important is that it's a very doable thing. And, for those that are interested, you can certainly feel free to email me, reach out. I put my email in the chat. I'd be happy to sort of give people pointers or whatnot if you run into things. But with that being said, let me go ahead and get started. Let's see.
And while Kai's bringing that up, I'm going to go ahead and let everybody know. Down at the bottom of your screen, there's a little hand. If you would like to raise your hand and ask a question at any point in time during the presentation, feel free to let me know. Just raise your hand and we will recognize you, allow you to ask your question, and that way you can contribute. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Kai.
Cool. So these are just some Google slides. And so we're going to do two things. And I just want to make sure that you can see them both. We're going to jump back and forth between Google Slides and ChatGPT. So we are going to sort of primarily talk about ChatGPT. This really applies to AI in general. So whether you use Anthropic's Claude or OpenAI's ChatGPT or Google's Gemini, these are more principles, and you can sort of mix and match however you'd like. The first thing I want to talk about is, as all things with AI, it really comes down to the prompt and what you're telling the AI to do for you. And so you can certainly go into ChatGPT and you can say, hey, write a social media post about X, and you're going to get something. And you may like it, but odds are you're probably not going to like it. And you're going to say, well, I don't like this word, and I don't like this word, and I don't like this word, and so there's some back and forth. And as we were talking earlier on the call before a lot of you joined, AI is a very iterative thing, right? You sort of you're constantly refining your prompts, but everything has to do with prompting in all generative AI. All the AI that we use is really about what you put into it. So I want to share with you, I'm not going to go into full screen on the slides because it sort of messes up the presentation. So hopefully people can read this, but this is an actual prompt, and we're gonna do sort of a live demo on this. But basically, so this is a prompt that I use, and you can go to, again, our LinkedIn page, and you can see sort of the output of this prompt. But it's for LinkedIn posts. I have another very similar one for Facebook. And you can do the same thing for any social media channel. But we have very specific things. So write a LinkedIn post designed for a business audience. And after that, I would give it an overview of what I wanted to talk about. And then I wanted to follow these guidelines. So we have style, we have structure, we have tone, technical elements, and then important notes. And these are the things that are that would include negative prompting. So things not to do, right? So I don't like things that use a lot of encouraging action or words like let's embrace or you should. I want a more objective thing. So a lot of our social media stuff is commentary on an article that's been published by someone else. And so I want to give it an article. I want it to ingest that article. I want it to read that article and then create a summary. And then from that summary, I want it to create a social media post. And then I want that post to automatically be published. So in my workflow, all I want to do is give it something I'm interested in. And once I do that, I don't want to look at it again. The next thing I should get is a notification on my computer or phone saying, congratulations, your post has just been posted. And then I will look at it and say, oh, that's really neat. I like that. And so I use a couple different tools to do this, but it all starts with this prompt right here, which is, where I have been very, very prescriptive on what I want out of this. And so, a little things, I want sort of an approachable explanation. I want it to use we. So it's as us as a company. I maintain academic rigor. I don't want it to become extremely subjective on things. I don't want it to take a strong opinion. And I will say, before I started all of this, I was, I didn't sort of out of the gate just have it start publishing stuff. I really sort of handheld this because I didn't want it to go off the rails and start, posting crazy things, right? So I made sure that it was doing the right thing. And from that, this is how I developed this prompt, because he would do something and I'd say, well, I don't like that. And so something that I advocate for everyone here is to keep a notebook of some kind, a digital notebook of prompts you use, or notes about the prompts and the output. So if you notice AI is doing something that you don't like, write that down, right? Because you need to start adding that as part of your prompt, saying, no, I don't want that. Right, like I don't like that in my output. And I have more global ones that basically say, for every conversation, here's what I want and what I don't want. But for social media, it's very particular. So you can see tone requirement, objective, but conversational. Avoid promotional language, ground observations and data, and avoid subjective phrasing. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And I want to show you sort of what that looks like. So let me copy something in. Now we're going to switch over to ChatGPT, and we're going to write a LinkedIn post for the South Baldwin County Chamber of Commerce Gateway Workforce Initiative. So this is sort of a two-parter. The first thing that I would do if I'm doing this manually is I go to ChatGPT and I'd say, research this subject for me. So in this case, I already did this. I said, research. Let's see if I can actually find it. It should be in one of these South Baldwin Leadership Series. So I said, Gateway, there's we go. So I said, please research the South Baldwin County Chamber of Commerce Gateway Workforce Initiative and give me a comprehensive summary paragraph. The word comprehensive is a trigger for AI. You will get much better results if you use the word comprehensive in things, just as a tip for folks. So it came back and it gave me a summary. And so that looks pretty good. And so we will then go ahead and post this in. So what it says, write a LinkedIn post designed for a business audience, which is what we talked about before, about the South Baldwin Chamber of Commerce Leadership Series. Here's an overview, and I just pasted in its research note. And then below that, we have all of the guidelines that we had established earlier. So style, structure, tone, technical, and then important notes. And that's just about anything. Also, I want all of our posts to be under 200 words. I don't want, for these, I don't want a long thing. So we'll let it rip. And so it comes out with a LinkedIn post with hashtags. So in workforce development, the chamber-led initiative is really described as infrastructure, but the Gateway Initiative might change that. So this is, I can tell already it's going to be sort of a post worth posting, right? Like this is the content I want in our LinkedIn stuff. LinkedIn is very much about sort of feeding the algorithm. And, you know, this is a good, fairly generic, but also informational post. What's particularly noteworthy. So it goes into sort of, it has that conversational tone. It points out some things. It also sort of asks some questions. You can see down here, it has sort of the result question mark. There are some things that clearly give it away as AI. It uses the M dash, which you can, that would be sort of maybe a note that I would add saying don't use M dashes, right? It's a clear indicator of AI use. However, I don't care if people know that our social media is written by AI. In fact, I tend to think all social media is written by AI. So that's not a concern for me. But if it is for you, you can go through and anything you see in the output, you can say, well, this makes it sound like it's AI. I don't like that. You can also put into your prompt something like write it as, you know, in the most human way possible. If you use the word human, you will get a slightly more humanistic response. But overall, like to me, this is fine. So this is an example of what I want to end up in our automation. I will go back to the slides. And again, hopefully everyone can see. So again, I'm going to present a more complex workflow. It's not to put anyone off. It's just I want to give you an example of this. And we can do this many different ways. This is just how I do. And here's sort of the process. We gather news from someplace. We stick those news sources in a database. And a database for our purposes is a spreadsheet. We send the news source to AI to do something with. So we're gonna send that off. We're gonna store the AI post back in the spreadsheet, and then we're gonna send that post to a social media scheduler. That's gonna be our workflow. That's the sort of the 5 steps to making this work. Incidentally, this little graphic was done using napkin.ai, just like, you know, sort of napkin. And it's exceptionally good at making these sort of little diagrams and sort of infographics. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely check out napkin.ai. Very, very helpful. Here's the tools that I use. And there are substitutes for each one of these things. So you can sort of skin this many different ways. I use something called Feedly to gather news. Feedly is a sort of a Google News on steroids. It is a subscription thing. So if you're not into subscriptions, that's fine. Google News will do basically the same thing. I also use Google Sheets to store things. I use something called Zapier, which is an automation tool. We'll look at that. I use a little bit of a Python script. This is where it gets a little technical. And again, we can work around this. And then I use Buffer as a scheduler. So Google Sheets is free. I think it's free for everyone. My company uses the Google Workspace. And Heroku, which is the service here that runs my script, that costs me $1.25 a month, and Buffer is free. Just to give you sort of sort of what this would cost if you were to replicate the whole thing. I think the entire thing comes out to about $38 a month for me to do this. And I can, it's unlimited. I could post 1,000 posts a month, which no one wants to read 1,000 posts of this. But let me just sort of walk through this process. So the first thing I do is I log into Feedly and I gather news sources. So Feedly has this idea of boards. So you find articles that you like and you put them on a board, very similar to something like Pinterest, right? You basically collect things into your board. So I go through this list of things and I say, oh, this is interesting, this is interesting, this is interesting. And just like, all things, you can sort of curate this, right? You can get it to find more and better news if you want. Just like we were talking about earlier, AI is very much about sort of how much effort you're willing to put in. It really it corresponds to the output. So in this case, I found some news and I've put it on my Feedly board. I then go over to Zapier, and Zapier lets you do things like say, if something happens, do something else. There's a service called if this then that. And that's exactly what Zapier does, is if something happens, do that. And so I've connected Zapier to my services. So I've connected it to Google Sheets. I've connected it to Feedly. So if there's a new article in a board and it knows what to look for, then add it to Google Sheets. So if it sees something come in to my board, it will then put it into Google Sheets. So it'll put the URL into Google Sheets. And here's kind of what that looks like. So in Google Sheets, it puts the article title, it puts the link, and that's all it does right now. We won't look at these other columns. Forget that they exist right now. So sort of that first process, that sort of the manual action I'm taking is I'm logging in, and so what I do is at the beginning of the week, usually Sunday night, I go through and I find 10 to 20 things that I'm interested in. I add those to the board, and then the process kicks off, and we'll see sort of the scheduler in action. But I don't touch it again. This is sort of a weekly thing. You could also do this every month if you wanted to, but we try to stay a little bit more timely with the news. Then I do this thing where I send the news off to AI. Right. And so this is where it's slightly more technical, and I've written a Python script to do this, but I want you to look at what the Python script looks like. Okay. And I know this is hard to see, and I don't mean for this to be an eye test, but the Python script basically says, sort of create a function to do something. And here is the prompt. Write a LinkedIn post designed for a business audience, follow these guidelines, and we've already just seen these guidelines, right? So all this is doing a sort of a behind the scenes. Instead of using the ChatGPT client, it's sending this exact thing to OpenAI through their API. And a Python script is helping to do that, but it's the exact same thing that we just saw earlier. This is the automated version. It's going to be no different than the manual version that we saw. And what it does is it says, okay, when you've looked at this article and you've summarized it and you've created the output, I want you to store it back into that Google Sheet. So here's an article. So AI wrote a summary, and then a LinkedIn post was created. And then we go back to Zapier, which we've already been in, and we have another little thing that says, if the Google Sheet is updated, I want you to send it to Buffer. So Buffer is a social media scheduler, and many of you probably have experience with it, but there's a few of these schedulers that exist. Buffer, I find to be very good. I find it to also be very free, which is really nice. There's some limitations, but for my purposes and for most people's purposes, the free account works fine. And so here it knows to look at the spreadsheet row. So I want it to look at these rows, sorry, these columns and these rows. And if this is not empty, then it should do something. So if this is not empty, you should add it to a queue. And then what it does, it sends it over to Buffer, and Buffer knows that I want to I want to post stuff twice a day. And Buffer picks the times because Buffer understands our audience, and it knows when it has a model to try to figure out when the optimal time to post something is. But I know that I want 2 things a day and only 2 things a day. So if it gets fed 10 things, it'll spread that out over 5 days, right? And so it's not going to do all 10 things on the same day, sort of back to back to back. It's going to spread that out through the week. And then it sends me a notification saying this has been posted. And so this is this is really the workflow for me in automating social media. And I think what's important, so I have a couple of different companies and also Lower Alabama AI. Each one has a different profile. They're different companies. They do slightly different things. And so their tone's going to be different. And what they, if we go sort of back up to what we're talking about, it always gets back to the prompt. And so this is the prompt I want for one company. I have another prompt where I want a much more detailed post. I want a multi-paragraph post. I want it much more academic. I want it to be somewhat editorialized so that it has an opinion. So I've had to build in sort of a point of view. So it takes it incorporates an opinion, which can be, not dangerous, but it's something to watch out for, because you want to really sort of put some guardrails around that stuff. But for each company and each channel, it's different, right? So Facebook has a different audience than LinkedIn, than Twitter, than whatever the channels are. There's so many I've lost count, and I don't really publish all of them, but they all have different audiences, and so you want to give that context to the AI before you're doing anything. So my advice to people that aren't currently doing this is to work on the prompt first and start doing this manually. So you can do everything I just did, you can do manually, right? You can go to Google News on Sunday night or Monday morning. You can find 10 things that are interesting. You copy down the URL, you put that URL into ChatGPT, say, research this article, give me a summary. You take that summary and you put it back into ChatGPT and you say, write me a post based on this, and here are all my guidelines. And then you copy that output into Buffer. So that is the manual version of what I just showed you. And my system takes, sort of incrementally less time to do, but it's fundamentally the exact same thing, right? And so, you can generate however, probably 10 to 20 of these kind of posts for different channels in, 30 minutes tops. Once you have this down, it's really about sort of copying and pasting. That's your key function that you're going to do. But the key is really refining this for your company, for you personally, making sure the tone and the style and the structure matches what you want. And that's something that you have to sort of iteratively go through. And it's not something that I have found that ChatGPT or any of the AI agents does naturally. So if we if we do this and we can sort of let's just do a quick check.
Real quick,
Yeah.
any more, you were talking about the prompt and obviously the importance of the prompt, and you mentioned a little nugget about using the word comprehensive as really
Yes.
kind of focusing AI and using the word human when you're getting a more natural response. Are there any other kind of little nuggets that that our listener, our people on the call could use to help kind of make their posts a little bit more natural?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think and I'm trying to think on the spot if there's certain words I use. I use words like detailed quite a bit. So what I'm always trying to do is bound something, right? Like I want something comprehensive, but I want it to be a summary, right? That's telling AI, like, if you just say comprehensive, you're going to get a research paper back. But I want a summary, and I want it in one paragraph, and I want it in under 200 words. And so you're really constricting AI to stick within those bounds, but still be good content, right? By using words like detailed and comprehensive and exhaustive, right? That's another one, right? So if you're asking it to do research, it's like, I want an exhaustive research. And
as my English teacher used to say, adjectives are my friends.
Yeah, that's right. Great. You use adjectives. It really works, and what it does is it guides the AI, and it says, okay, I have to do this, right? I have to make it like this. But let's write a LinkedIn post for we could use that now. So this was a bad example because you can tell it learned. It did something that I've taught it to do, which is to use this. This is how I know that my prompt wrote this. Was particularly noteworthy. So even though I tried to get it to just write a post without any guidance, it knows this because I'm using my account, and it has a bunch of like global instructions where it knows what to do. So I'm not going to be able to show you a good contrast, but this is something to play around with, right? You can try different versions of this, and you may find, like, hey, out of the box, it does great for you. My guess is you're going to want something more polished. Another sort of trick that you can do is, if your company or you have posted a lot, is to copy down things you've posted in the past. Maybe some things that were more successful than others, or just maybe it doesn't matter. You just sort of copy down everything and you give it examples. So AI loves examples. So if you can give it an example of what you're talking about, it will do a much better job. So you can say, here are my last 15 posts. Please use these as examples to understand the words I use, my tone, my style, my structure, and create a new post based on that, using those same characteristics. So AI loves it loves examples, and it really likes being sort of directed into the right sort of the right mindset. That is, I know that's a lot, and I'm very aware that that's a ton of information, and a fairly sort of complex workflow. I can't reiterate enough that I probably make it look harder than it is, and so I want people to feel free to reach out if you're trying this and you say, hey, this is not I don't know why my camera's doing that, that this is not working for me. I want you to there you go, to feel free to let me know, and I'm happy to sort of point you in the right direction and get you started. That's no problem at all.
I've got a question.
I'm gonna open up for questions. I know Michael's always gonna have questions.
Yeah.
So count on it.
I'm gonna get my question out there while y'all are thinking of y'all's questions, because I want to see what you got. So this is very much a selfish question. So you were my favorite publicist last week.
Yes.
I had a lot of materials coming out. So you did a couple of things that were interested in those. Clearly used AI to design. You even called it out that you were using AI to do these things. You were clearly using AI to create the graphics that you did. The humor was really spot on. So the pop culture and the humor was really what most people who had read it made a comment to me, or even made comments in. And I only looked at those things on LinkedIn. I don't know if you put it anywhere else.
Only Facebook
But
and LinkedIn.
did you automate that in a way, or did you have to tuck that a little bit more?
No, so those I tend to, it's a bit of a more of a passion project. So I work on those a little bit harder. So just to give you some background in those and to people who, let me see if I can find some of those, and I bet you I can. Give me 1 second and I'll show people what,
I'll beat you to it.
oh, cool. There you go. Okay. So, there's our host with the most as the Matrix character. And so, there's different things that go into this. One I like to think about sort of like, references that, and that's probably where sort of like, my level of creativity comes in. It's like, oh, what would be fun for this, right? What's an interesting thing that has a sort of a strong character, because I want to use pictures of Michael in it, and as opposed to a scene. So I think about that a little bit. But after I thought about that, and I have an idea of what I want, my process is this: I go to ChatGPT or I go to Claude, and I say, I'm going to create an image of Michael in sort of a Matrix like movie poster, and it's for this event that we're doing now. It knows all about Lower Alabama AI, so I don't have to give it much detail. And I said, what I want you to do is I want you to write a prompt for me that I can use in an image generation thing. So in ChatGPT, they have Sora, and if you haven't used it to create images, you should. It's really, really good. So if you ask ChatGPT to create an image, it will on the back end use Sora. But if you go to Sora directly, it will create better images for you. And so I take that prompt that's been developed for me, and then I put it into Sora, and this is the output. And I got maybe 4 or 5 variations, and I said, not this one, not this one. And getting back to sort of tips, I do that a lot. I have AI write a lot of prompts for me. When I just have sort of an inkling of an idea of what I want, I will use AI to help me develop that into a prompt. If I don't know exactly sort of how to phrase it or how to structure my prompt, I will have AI write the initial prompt. I'll try it. I'll evaluate the output, and then I will come back and say, that prompt really didn't work that well. Like here's the output I got. And AI is really good about sort of self-correcting and say, oh, I did this or I did this. Let me do that. So this is what we're talking about, sort of that iterative process, right? Sort of using AI to do these. But in this case, I had thought of like 4 or 5, or actually I have a whole head full of like things that I find funny in this case for like, for promotion. And so I sort of dip into that bag and I find some things, and Michael just has an outstanding face for promotion. Like he really works out. It really works well. So in this case, like I think I like doing them as much as anyone liked reading them. So
can I pull on that thread just a little bit about prompting and really, and I'm using you as a little bit more of a overall reference in regards to AI now, and kind of harkening back to what we were talking about before everybody joined. When we're talking about, this is a tool. This is something that a lot of people aren't necessarily used to using, but we all know it's something that we need to start using. And it's not always natural, but we need to kind of work on it and get better at it. And the more we use it, we will get better at it.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, so I employ people to think of AI as Excel or Google Sheets or any other sort of tool you use. the more you use it, the more comfortable you get with it. If you've ever met sort of people who are sort of masters at Excel, they were not born that way, right? They've used Excel a lot. They write formulas in their sleep, and it looks like magic when really good spreadsheet folks sort of are doing stuff. It's because they've been doing it a lot, right? They've worked at it. It's a trade, right? They've honed that skill. AI is the same way. Like, you will hone this skill if you use it, and you'll get better at this, and you will learn how to talk to AI, right? You'll learn you can predict what it's going to come back with before you even do it, and that sort of makes you sharper. And and you also learn what tools do a better job, because AI isn't just one thing, right? AI is a bunch of different. There's now a bunch of different tools for different purposes, and you start to understand. Like, I know, like in this thing that Daniel's showing, right? I knew that Sora would do a better job making that image than Midjourney, which is another image generation tool. And I know that, and what I like about Sora is it allows me to put words into the image, so I could add local IT to his shirt. And that was important to me. Midjourney doesn't do a good job, so I know that, but I only know that because I've tried this hundreds of times, right, in different things. And so I encourage everyone, just use it. And I think adding it to your workflow is really important, because a lot of people sort of maybe don't think about using AI for stuff at the, that's not their first instinct. I encourage people to try to do that, right? That's how you're going to get really good at AI. And that's a thing. And it is no different than learning Excel. It's no different than learning any, if you're a CAD operator, it's because you spent a lot of time, working in CAD. So how to work it. If you're a graphic designer and you work in Photoshop, Photoshop really well because you've used it, a lot. And AI is exactly the same thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I have a statement to that, and maybe I can turn it into a question if I try hard. But I find to take your analogy, it's a spreadsheet, it's a Photoshop or anything else. Another part there are multiple tools, and you pointed it out. So it's not just ChatGPT, it's not just Midjourney. These things have all these AIs have different emphasis on how they work. Napkin is a great. You introduced me to Napkin AI months ago, and I use it on a regular basis. But Notebook LM is another example of something that's a very singular use case. You can use it for many things, but it kind of has its thing that it's doing with AI. Napkin is a very specialized AI tool. Sora, Midjourney, ChatGPT, Gemini. So you kind of have this utility knife when you go to ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or something, but they also have very specialized attributes to them. And you have to kind of understand, if you go to AI Studio, you're going to get one type of result. If you put the exact same prompt in Notebook LM, you're going to get a significantly different result.
Yeah. It's a very good point. An analogy has nothing to do with automating social media, but this is a general thing for people that behind the scenes, when you go to ChatGPT and you type in a question, it's using something behind the scene called mixture of experts. And so what a mixture of experts is a bunch of smaller AI models that have been built for very specific things. And so when you type in a question about, let's say you wanted to draft a will for you, right? What the first layer is doing is it's a traffic cop. It's figuring out what this pertains to. And so it says, oh, this is a question that has to do with law or legal, anything. It's going to go to sort of our lawyer AI model. It's going to call up that expert. And so you can think of it as a hospital, right? So when you walk into a hospital and you say, hey, I'm sick, I have a problem, they're going to say, well, where's the problem? And then they're going to guide you to an expert, right? You're going to, sort of end up with any number of medical care professionals. AI works the exact same way. So what you're doing is, in the old days, meaning 6 months ago, or longer, you would specify, say, you are my lawyer, do this. And what you were doing by doing that is you were directing it to the legal version of itself, right? The one that knows the most about law. You don't really have to do that as much anymore, but it doesn't hurt to do that. But just know behind the scenes, you have all of, you have this, just like a hospital, you have sort of, hundreds or thousands of experts, and it's calling up experts. And as the conversation changes, it might call other ones into it. And that's what sort of dictates the result you get.
All right. If anybody has a question, please feel free to raise your hand, and we can make it where you can ask your question. It doesn't have to be on this topic. It can be a variety of different things.
If anybody wants to go over to ChatGPT and ask it how to ask a good AI question. One of the things that I do want to make sure that gets pointed out, Kai, that you emphasize well enough, but I want to put even more pressure on it, is having the AI prompt for you. I will do that. I find myself doing that more and more, and that is that muscle that you just have to iterate and you have to flex. But if you go and say, I don't understand how to ask this question about how to prompt to write a formula for Excel or Google Sheets, can you help me understand how to write that? You can just ask these questions of the AI tools, and they will help you understand how to be better at AI. It's crazy that you use AI to be better at AI.
It's very meta, but it works really well.
Carly, I understand you have a question. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask it.
My name's Jansen. I'm her husband. Anyways,
you're
all good. What was the exact workflow for the marketing automation in terms of
Sure.
the from AI to, let's say, Facebook?
Yeah. So I'll walk through the whole thing. So it's find the news source. So I use Feedly for that. I use Zapier to put that news source into a spreadsheet. I use sorry, this is annoying. I use a Python script to then send that article to AI, and then put the summary back into that spreadsheet. And then I use Zapier again to pull stuff out of a spreadsheet and stick it into Buffer. And Buffer's been configured for all of our social media channels. So it knows, it basically knows what to put where and how to schedule it.
Cool, perfect. I can reproduce that. Thank you.
Awesome. Oh, and Carly's husband, if you have trouble, my email's in the chat.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And again, with that, I will, unless there's any other questions, I'll go ahead and start to wrap this thing up. But again, Kai, Michael, want to thank you for all your help throughout this entire process. And to everybody on the call, I'd like to challenge you to do something. And that is to think about a project that's been sitting on the shelf for a little while that you haven't touched, that seems a little bit difficult. And I would challenge you to spend a few hours, a week, using AI to see if you couldn't tackle that tool. And when you run into an issue, which everybody will run into an issue eventually, please, we want to be a resource. You can contact me and I can help get you with Kai. Again, Kai's information is in the chat. Michael has been a part of this since the beginning. We can help you. We really just want to see AI grow and see businesses grow. And we want to be a resource to you as you walk down this path. So please, we're here for you. And I challenge you to go out and get uncomfortable and practice it and try to do something you're not used to doing, because I promise you, if you put in the time, it will pay dividends for you in the long run.
Absolutely.
So again, thank you, everybody. We hope to start these up again, probably in the fall, September time period. But until then, we hope everybody has a wonderful summer. And again, thank you so much for being part of this 3-part series with us.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.